That meat was
Such
good.
a mom. You got your sandwich.
You can eat.
He should have. He should have.
The Lord has blessed us many times with just awkward amounts of food, like a whole bunch of cream of mushroom. Is that what I think that's doing?
That was the best.
Pillsbury dough.
Pizza.
Yeah, Pillsbury dough is good.
That was a lot of Pillsbury dough. That was.
It even trickled all the way
I
down.
know, there was dough everywhere. Well, it's like, we even got it from, one time we were given a go-kart from the same guy who uses food. It was like, he picked it up on the side of the road, an electric go-kart. They drove it to the way the tires work, it just wore the tires out and they had fun. But it worked, one of the wires was unhooked. And so I just rewired that back and it worked fine. All right, this afternoon we're in Psalm 133, and I'll read. It's a short psalm. And behold how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. It is like the precious ointment upon the head that ran down upon the beard, even Aaron's beard that went down to the skirts of his garment, as the dew of Hermon and as the dew that descended upon the mountains of Zion. For there the Lord commanded the blessings, even life forevermore. Let's pray. Lord, I love you, and I just thank you for all you do, and Lord, we just thank you for just being good to us, Lord. So many times we take for granted how good you are. I just pray you help us to realize we're blessed, and I do pray for our country. I pray for the churches of America. Lord, help us be a light here in our city, God. I pray you help us now. In Jesus' name, amen. You know, I was reading about there was a seminary. It was like a Chinese seminary, and what they did was they were in a real remote area where they were at, and one of the things they told them to do was to memorize some psalms. And some of the psalms they memorized, one was the 23rd Psalm, the Lord is my shepherd, shall not want. And they said that's good to know, because when you're out here alone, it's good to just have that assurance, right? We were talking about Terry Angel's daughter being a missionary, and how when they were in that country and people were attacking and killing Christians and pulling them out of their homes, how her and her husband were hiding in the house, and they would sing songs they sang when they were kids, like Jesus loves me, this I know. But sometimes it's something simple. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Like whenever you look at almost every funeral you go to, they put the 23rd Psalm. You know, people know that's kind of a comforting thing to know. Hey, you need to know you have a relationship of salvation. You know, and you can't just say, you know, I profess Christ as my Savior. I mean, it's a real relationship. The Lord is my shepherd, right? And then they also would learn the 121st Psalm, which is, the Lord shall preserve thy going out and coming in for this time forth. So that was something that would help them. You know, and honestly, we do live in, if you look at America today, we kind of live in a remote area in the sense of sometimes you feel a little bit alone. I couldn't help but think, you know, he's got his Bible there, and I bought him that here recently. We started reading through Psalms that night together, and me and him and Hartley reads two separate times. And, you know, I'd hate to think he might go, if he went to school, like if he went up here to Hope School, they probably wouldn't let him carry that Bible around. Or if he did, somebody would have something to say about it. And if he was sharing scripture out of it, or saying, hey, me and my dad read this, they wouldn't like that, actually, Ethan. That's sad. And I mean, it's just sad to think that's what's going on. You can see that. And so we need these assurances like, hey, the Lord's my shepherd, or hey, he's going to preserve. You know, Heath wants to be a preacher. Now, I'm always telling him, I said, man, that's a great thing. It's a good thing, you know, desire the office of a bishop. But it'll be tough. It's different. You know, I always joke too. I said, you have job security too, though, because there's a lot of churches that need preachers. You know, there are all over the country, sadly. You know, we see it all the time. Just people we know just saying, man, we need a preacher at our church, and it's getting harder to even find preachers. Especially a preacher that is going to stick with anything the whole time. That's why they can't find it, right? And I tell you, so we need these verses. And then the 126th Psalm says, "He that goeth forth with weeping, bearing precious seed, shall doubtless come again with rejoicing." And that's just, you need that. You know that when you go and do something for the Lord will, you reap what you sow, and you can get something back. I think about Ruth's dad has been there. Is it going to be 31 this year or 32 this year? 33, so it's not, still off, okay. So he's been up there 33 years, pastoring, and, just starting off there, and of course their auditorium was, pretty much like the square footage of this room, for years. How many years? They were in that longer than we were in our auditorium using that. And, they were filling it up on Sunday morning, and even had money put aside, but they just kept going and doing that. Having their VBS. Can you imagine this having VBS in that little place like we used to have VBS? But you look at it now, and their missions giving is so big, and they're able to help other people. They've been able to help us, but it's because they just stuck with it. You just say, okay, do this, do this. Now you say, is everybody with them that was there when it started? Well, pretty much no. Maybe there's like 2, okay? But there's 4, okay? 3. Sorry, I can't see. I need new contact. Was it Ted and Carrie?
Derek.
And Derek. We count Derek. Maybe that's his son. So, but, and so, Ruth backslid, didn't know. So, I wish she could have been part of that group, but you just keep going for it and doing it. I think too many times we get caught up with the world wants us to be, but just make sure you do what the Lord wants you to do. You go forth weeping, crying for some of these souls, and the Lord will help you out on that. And then this 133rd Psalm that I just read, "Behold how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity." Now just think about these guys in the seminary way off by themselves. They need that verse, right? Because they got to live out there by themselves together, and they need to get along, right? It's, and if you're a parent like I am with 4 kids, you're having to tell them to get along a lot. That's a lot of part of the parenting. It's like, and I don't know if this is the right strategy. I just use it. If one kid's having a problem, I tell all 4 of them, I say, look, y'all better figure this out, or all 4 of you get along. And then they negotiate, and all of a sudden there's no problem. I said nobody wants, not all 4 of us, to get a whooping for Heath being bad, right? So, and I'll tell you, behold how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. I think it's important to know you're saved, right? It's important to also know that God's going to preserve you and help you and things like that. But we also need to understand that obviously we don't want to be with someone who has a different doctrine that's not from the Bible, right? But sometimes, let's just be honest, sometimes it's just selfishness or pride or whatever, and I've been in church long enough now. I've been saved, I guess, about 19 years. So I've been in church long enough now that some of the most abrasive, mean people I've met have been in church. I hate to say that, but it's true. And let me tell you, I didn't hang out with the really nice people before I got saved. Okay? But I've compared. It's funny, recently, someone on Facebook, I don't have a Facebook page, but Ruth does. Well, somebody from my high school, I guess, seen probably from another post. I think it was the post I put in the ordination service of Kevin. And so he friend requested Ruth, and she said, "Who is this guy? Should I accept this friend request?" I said, "Yeah, go ahead." His name is, it's probably what his name is Chris Burnside. Okay. And I said, "His name's Chris Burnside." I said, Does he have a hat on and a goatee?" And she said, "Yeah." And that's what it looked like in high school. He had a goatee when he was 16. He'd wear a hat in between class. Literally always wearing a hat. And he has sideburns. His last name is Burnside. I So we called him Burnside, right? That's what we just called him. And you know, he's a real nice guy. You know, anyway, so he friend requested, and so he'll be liking some of the posts on there and things like that. And I even think of someone like him. He had a pretty rough background, but I know a lot of Christians that are meeting with him. You know, and it's sad because I can think of some people like that. Just thinking back to welding class in high school, you had the really good people were in the welding class, right? I was the only one in welding class that actually didn't make an ashtray for my project, okay? I was the only one. It's like time for project, everybody's making big metal ashtrays. I'm like, God, messed up, you know? And I think they took welding because they could smoke in the class and nobody could tell because there was smoke everywhere. You know? I made deer stands and sold them. I was in there for the money, okay? And so I'd make me a deer stand with about $4 worth of material from the school, and then I'd sell it for $60. You know, I don't know if it's going to hold together or not, but you know, I didn't put a weight rating on it. I just sold it. But you know, the psalmist here, which really God is just telling us, it's good and pleasant to get along. Like it's actually good to get along. You know, some people. I know a particular church, and you know, I'm not. That's fine. That's their church. You know, it's just a church that I know pretty well. And the way they do their staff meetings, because it's a bigger church, and they have several people on staff, and they like literally, purposely, like they said, well, if you got a thought that you know the Lord's laying in your heart to do for ministry, then present it to us, and then we're going to like fight you. And if you believe in it, we'll be able to tell them. Like, so if you kind of sit in on that, which I did one time, you think everybody hates each other, like literally, like, right, you know? And at the end they're okay, they're right, you know. But I also went to another church and had staff meeting, and it was real weird. They actually just talked and it was pleasant, and everybody, you know, they still disagreed with each other, but they got along better, you know. And there makes a big difference, right? I mean, you can tell, like, you know, have you ever seen a husband and wife sometime when they're disagreeing, but it's okay. You can tell that it's just a discussion. You can tell the difference between a discussion and something else, right? When one of them just walks away, you know, and you know what I'm saying? Like, you can tell if something's tense or not. You don't have to disagree, and there always be like almost like, hey, we're about to have a fist fight, right? And so you got to work on that stuff. And Christians need to learn that, you know. They need to learn how to just reasonably talk. Brother Kent, that reminds me, we were talking at church camp one time, and he had someone visit his church. And they had come about a couple of months, you know, and were seeming pretty involved and everything. And then they just kind of stopped coming. So he was going up to the bank, and that guy was coming out. And they were just kind of talking. And Brother Kent wasn't even asking about church or anything, he was just chatting with him. But I guess the guy just felt like he needed to tell him why he stopped coming. And so he told him that, well, Brother Kent said something about drinking wine as a mocker, you know, and all this. And, you know, he didn't agree with that. And he said, so Brother Kent just tried to quote some verses, talk with him a little bit. And the guy was just wanting to just fight about it all day. But Kent's like, you know, I got some things to do. I don't think I'm going to change your mind, so we'll see you around. You know, and just went in and did his business because he knew he wasn't going to change his mind, you know. And you can do that without fighting people, you know. And I think that when you look at, I like how they give the illustration. It says it was like the precious ointment upon the head that ran down the beard, even Aaron's beard, and went down to the skirts of his garment. You know, just this anointing oil. And specifically talking about this, you know, Aaron's beard. I think what I like about it is it was like a visible, you know, the Bible uses oil a lot of times as the Holy Spirit. It's like a visible presentation of, hey, that basically that God is with this person, right? It's because you can have some unity, you can have some peace, even in the midst of something. You don't have to fight. You know, you don't have to. We can all agree Donald Trump didn't have that quality, right? And so that hurt him a lot in the eyes of most Christians. probably in the world, right? Just heard him because he had good policies. He had really good things that we liked. If he just would have been like a little bit nice, not call people horse face and stuff like that, that would have helped a lot, right? I mean, most of the time, if I hear somebody call somebody horse face, I might laugh with it, okay? But the truth is, I don't really like that. That means what is he going to call me when I cross him one day, right? What's he going to say about me? And I'm just saying, you can stand your ground, and I think kids can react better to a parent that stands their ground and is calm about it and shows that this isn't about us being separated from each other. That's not why I'm fighting about this. I'm fighting with you about this because I have some good points on this that we need to talk about, right? And, I think one of the things is being I was raised Catholic, and then I got saved, and, Catholics seemed nicer than Baptists. Okay, let's just put it like that. Now, they were wrong about all their doctrine, but they did seem a little nicer, They listened to the preacher more. He wasn't a preacher, he was a priest. But, they even fell for the trick about the bread and everything. But they listened to him and they followed things. And I'll tell you, we're seeing almost a group of people that we're so busy fighting ourselves that we're missing out on a whole lot of people out there that need to be saved. There's a lot of people that need to be reached. We're talking about people who, in our own country, who really have never been presented with the gospel. And that seems weird, but you got to understand that we've watered it down so much they don't even look at it anymore. Unless we go one-on-one with them, they're not going to listen. Because they've heard, oh yeah, I'm a sinner, Jesus saves. That's the way they see it. But if they could have someone who would just discuss it, talk with them a little more about it. And so then he even talks about the dew. And we all know, like, you come outside and there's dew outside. And there's just something refreshing about that dew in the morning time, right? There's just something about, and the difference, like, if it's a really hot summer and there's like no dew, it's a lot different. I love to come outside and be a little dew. Everything's fresh. You feel like everything's better when there's a little dew. And you feel like there's a little something better when there's unity. Here's the thing about unity. People can feel it when it's there, and they can feel it when it's not there. So, like, you ever talk about the elephant in the room? And it's just, and and by the way, I'm not the elephant in the room, even though Ruth said I need a treadmill. Okay? But I do have a treadmill, I just don't walk on it. Okay? Well, I walk on it once every couple of months, okay? But that's not enough. But here's the thing. People can see that, like, you ever been there, like, if a couple you could tell, they come to church and you can tell they had a fight in the car, It's not they come in and they're acting real nice, but it's just like, yeah, something happened in that car. And kids can see that too, and I really try to, although I think sometimes my kids can't tell when I'm upset, they just act like I'm not, and then it's pretty obvious I'm telling them I'm upset right now, leave me alone, and they still just like, what? I don't get it. Okay, so maybe they need a little discernment on that, right? Is that right, Ethan? He's like, I don't even know what you just said. But the song teaches us that a little bit about that. First off, it says, dwell together. Now, that just sounds pretty straightforward, dwell together, But what I want to point out is that you can't be totally independent and dwell together. Does that make sense? And we are in this time of, like, the independent spirit, right? And I saw a video, it was real funny. It was this girl saying, I don't need no man, right? And then it says, also me, and this girl was trying to pick up a ladder. And while she was picking up the ladder, like, it fell and her head fell through one of the rungs. And then it brought her backwards and she hit something else and flipped over. It's like, I don't need no man, right? And she was having trouble carrying the ladder. And we have this independent spirit, kind of like, I'm going to do my own thing, I'm going to, and now we have like over 50 or 70 genders or something like that, I don't know. So, everybody wants to do whatever, when I was a kid, they didn't give you that many choices, okay? They were just kind of like, you're a boy, be a boy, okay? And so I was just a boy. But I mean, we're living in a time where everybody wants their own thing, want to be independent of everything. They're like, you know, global warming, but I do need to use my private jet to go here. So, you know, I mean, you know, it's like different rules for everybody, but to dwell together, you got to drop a little bit of that independent spirit. Like, for instance, when a person, why are there more divorces? Because people can't just, look, when you get married, you got to drop a little bit of your independent spirit because you're married now. And she's gonna want to do things different. You know, it's gonna be different. Then have some kids, and you will see. They're gonna want to do things, and there's gonna be things. And you join a church, right? And there's gonna be people there. And you go to work, and you do everything, and the whole world is gonna fall apart if we can't learn how to work together, right? There has to be some things. You know, it gives strength. Like, think about a team. Like the Buffalo Bills. Could they win more if they just dwell together in unity, right? You know, I mean, you think about a football team, or you think about a baseball or basketball team, they have to have unity, right? They have to know what's going on. You can't just have one guy over here doing his own thing, because that's just going to mess everybody up. It's like, sometimes I have to tell my kids, you know, I have one particular kid, she likes to do, so you know it's one of the girls, but at least she's 3 to choose from, right? So I'm not really pointing her out. But she likes to help us. But she doesn't do things we tell her to do to help us. Like, she comes up with her own way to help us. And that's actually hurting us because, like, we don't want her to do that. That's not what she should be doing. She doesn't even know how to do it, but she'll try to do it, right? And it's like, I always tell her, I say, you know, there's only a few lists of things that we want you to do. Just stay on the list. Just, you know, you can unload the dishwasher or reload the dishwasher. You can, you know, take out the trash, or you can do this, you know, but she just comes up with her own little things. I'm gonna, you know, reorganize the whole room or something like that, you know, just start, you know, moving things around. I'm like, no, that's just making things worse, you know. And that's why we got to work together. And we got to understand that, you know, you could have money, like sports is a perfect example of this, because I mean, there are teams that have more money that don't always win. I mean, because it's not always about the money. I mean, the money helps them get some good players, and the money might help them get a good coach. But the real truth of it is, they have to just work together. There was a story, and I really don't know a lot about sports, but I remember reading this, and there was a coach who was asked after the game, he had lost, which, I mean, this game had a lot of money, had a supposedly good team, and they lost, and they asked him, do you think that the team has a morale problem? And his answer was classic. I think this sounds like that. He says, no, my players are too busy not speaking to each other to have a morale problem. And so, that was his answer. You know, that sounds about like a Baptist church, right? And so a team with, even if everybody on the team has really good talent, if they don't work together, it won't amount to as much as it could. There's so much more that can be done. You know, it's where you have 2 Baptists, you have 3 opinions, right? That's what they'll say. But, you know, the only thing 2 Baptists can agree on is what the third one ought to get. Okay, that's what it said. And that's what I've heard, right? It's like 6 men were marooned on a deserted island. 2 Catholics, 2 Jewish people, 2 Baptists. The 2 Catholics formed St. Mary's Church. The 2 Jews formed the Temple of Bethel. The 2 Baptists couldn't agree, so they split, and one formed Harmony Baptist, and the other formed Fellowship Baptist. Okay, so, but look, it is nice, and you know we're called independent Baptists, so you say, but we got to be careful that we're not so independent in our individuality that we don't understand that everybody's got to play on the team. Right? There's got to be a part you got to play, and you know, I really think about this, and I think how we look in the world. When the world looks out there and they see all these things working together so well, but they don't see the church working together well, that really affects everything, doesn't it? Because they look at it and they say, wow, I can't believe, you know, and so they could have some evidence against us, right? They could just say, look, you know, they could go to a church somewhere and they could say, okay, and they could start picking it apart. They could start seeing, how this person doesn't like this person, or how this is, and they could come up with some things and it could hurt the cause of Christ. And many, I mean, to be honest, one of probably the biggest sins in church today is just bitterness. I mean, I think there's people who are bitter that never get fixed. And I think you see that a lot. And I think that's something that needs to be talked about. That's something I'm working on with my kids. I know when you're in the ministry, I say, if you want to be judged, you know how people always say Christians are judging you? If you want to be judged, just be the preacher, okay? And then you'll get to be judged the most. And you just got to let some things roll off of that. I just say, oh, well, you know. My motto now is, well, if Donald Trump can put up with his criticism, I can put up with mine. Because I'm pretty sure he got criticized a few times or so. And got impeached twice, right? But I'm telling you, God can't work effectively. You know, it's like this. Okay, think of this phrase. We use this phrase a lot. A civil war, right? Which makes no sense, right? It wasn't a civil war, right? You can't have a civil war. That's still what we call it, the Civil War. It wasn't civil. People were killed. I mean, a lot of people were killed. And that's kind of how we do it in the Baptist church, right? It's kind of like, oh, it's not really a war. It's just a civil war, right? But soldiers together make an army, right? But a soldier by itself can't be an army. But soldiers with other soldiers can be an army. And so we talk about being the army of the Lord. That means we've got to work together. Trees together make a forest. But a tree by itself is just a tree. And in fact, if you take a bunch of trees together, they're more protected. The trees on the inside, they're more protected from wind. They're more protected. And so as Christians, if we work together, we can protect each other. You know, bricks together make a wall. You know, one brick doesn't do much good, but if you got a bunch of bricks, it helps. And Christians together make a church, right? Where 2 or 3 gather together in my name. And, you know, and I don't like this because, you know, this phrase, right? But it is snowing. But a snowflake's not much. I don't like being called a snowflake, by the way. Okay, that's not what I would want to be called. But I mean, if one snowflake fell outside, it wouldn't hurt as much, right? But you get thousands of snowflakes, and nobody will come to church, right? And they won't even, they'll buy all the bread. Okay, you know. And I don't know. Why do they buy bread when it's snowing, but toilet paper when there's a pandemic? I don't understand. It doesn't make sense that's how that works. But really, a great team, a great home, a great church is all about togetherness when you want to take it individually. Like I said, if you say, man, it's a great family, a lot of times it has to do with that family sticking it together. You know, that's why whenever Heath gets a little older, and he'll help me a little bit this summer, we eat mowing as we go out mowing, but also helping us with church, right? Helping us, he already does help with some stuff. And the girls help with stuff, and we do all that together. And we want to build a life where we're working together, right? Where we've got some unity together. Just think about it like an orchestra, right? You just can't I mean, some of those instruments sound horrible by themselves, by the way. I mean, some of them you don't even want to hear. Like somebody who does a cymbal, right? Nobody wants to hear a cymbal. But if you have everybody playing real good, and then that cymbal comes in at the right time, it makes a difference. But that's how the church needs to work, where you just got this. Can you imagine, you know, a visitor comes in, and they feel the unity, and then, you know, you're nice to them, and then you're this, and whatever, you know, all these different things that can happen. And, you know, it says to dwell together. And here's where I see something happening in this world that's scary, is we have more and more people that don't want to be together. Would you agree with that? It's like they want Facebook Live church, they don't want together church. Or they want to just be left alone. Does that happen a lot? You see, I mean, you see a lot of these people that are just like, I can't stand being around people. I'm like, me neither, but I'm supposed to, so I'm going to do it, right? Okay, it depends the person, right? But I'm just saying, we only get one life to live, right? Let's meet as many people as we can, and unity is not the same as union, okay? Union is outward, unity is inward, okay? Union is an organization, but unity is spiritual. Because you can have a union of people that aren't really in unity. Like they're a group that are supposedly together, but they don't really agree with each other. It's like this: when you get two cats with tails tied together, they have union, but they don't have unity, right? If you tie their tails together, it's not going to be unity, right? Unity is not being, unanimous on the issue, right? Think about it. Two people don't have to be totally in agreement to be unified. Like me and my wife don't agree on everything, but we have unity. And so that's what I'm trying to say. There's some things you don't agree on. I mean, she doesn't like popcorn that much. I love popcorn, right? So she doesn't drink coffee. I drink coffee. That just makes my life better. More coffee for me. But, there's some things we don't agree on. There's some ways I do things that she doesn't agree with and the way she does things. But in the end, it's not that big a deal. It's kind of like, well, that's how she's going to do it. And that's how I'm going to do it. It's not going to kill anybody. And it's not even wrong that we do it different ways. And, we don't have to see, I guess put it like this, you don't always have to see eye to eye to walk arm in arm on every issue. Because there's some issues that aren't that big a deal. It's like some issues, like, of course, like I think abortion is a sin, right? Well, that's a big issue. I'm not going to be in unity with someone who disagrees with that, right? Everybody has their different issues. Me personally, I think you shouldn't drink alcohol. That's what I personally think. My uncle died when he was 53 from cirrhosis of the liver. I don't see any good in alcohol. My Catholic upbringing, let me tell you, there was a lot of alcohol. And I didn't see any good come out of it. I look at that now and say, man, how much money could have got sent to the missionaries that was spent on drinking alcohol? There's a lot of things. So some things we're not going to be able to, walk arm in arm on. But there's some things that are just little things, and it's like, hey, we can do that. And don't be afraid of somebody holding a different opinion than you. I think we're scared of that. There's some people now growing up, and it's just like, if someone holds a different opinion than them, they just write it off. And they just avoid them at all costs. And the thing is, that conviction is something you pray about, and it's something that is in your heart, this is right, this is how it should be. You need to stick with your convictions. But when it comes to certain things, you need to ask yourself, do I need to shy away or be scared of that person? We need to talk about it. We need to do some things. And we have to learn what's the difference between a principle in your life and a preference in your life. There's certain things we say, okay, like me and Ruth decided before we got married, we're not going to put our kids in school, and so we haven't, And we decided that before we even had kids. We decided that before we were even married. We didn't have kids for 5 years after we were married. So, we decided a lot of things about that. We decided, we wouldn't have TV, and, of course what we meant is like a hookup to TV. And so, that's what we've done, and our kids, they have a flash drive. It's got, I don't know how many cartoons y'all got, about 500 or 600. They got about 500 or 600 cartoons on that, and that's all they can watch. They don't have internet or anything. But I get them new ones as I can, and I just download them onto the flash drive. So they've got access to it, and it's stuff that I'm okay with them watching, so they can see that. But we decided that's a conviction we had. We decided that early, and with principles, you do need to stand like a rock on your principles. If that's your principle, stand on it and say that's it. I'm not going to budge on that. But with a preference, you got to say, well, I'm kind of on some sand, right? And I just, okay, that's not how I prefer it, but you got Brother John, he runs a farm. He probably runs his farm different than other guys, right? And if you got to talking about how maybe your serviceman has suggestions sometimes that you're thinking, he's never did a chicken farm, he doesn't know. But like I said, you have to decide what's a preference and what's something you really got to stick with. And going back to the orchestra, when you look at an orchestra, what happens is many people on many instruments are yielding to one will of the conductor. But they're all doing different things. But the conductor is helping them kind of get it all together. And that's what God's doing, right? He's the conductor. And He's trying to get us saying, yeah, you're good. You're the guy who does the cymbal, right? That's it. Ding, right here. But, you're pretty good on the, trumpet or something. Or you're good on the violin. And so you'll be working on that. And then what we get is what we call harmony. right? And you can tell when there's no harmony. You don't even have to be that musical, and you can tell when it's off. I mean, you're just like, oh, that's way off, you know. And the surest way to harmony, whether it be in life or in home or in church, is really go to the conductor. Like, ask the conductor, what should I do about this? Because, I mean, he's going to put you in the right spot on this thing and get you where you need to be. If he thinks there needs to be a change, he'll tell you that. But our unity, it says, we dwell together in Christ. Look, what we need to understand is, you know, in 3 John, it tells of Diotrephes who love to have the preeminence among the brethren. Did you know there's still Diotrephes out there that want to have the preeminence? They want to like, hey, I didn't get treated good enough. You didn't treat me right. And, you know, they're just mad all the time, you know. I guess you don't understand how much money I have or something like that. They always have a reason why they should be treated better, you know. I just think we should treat everybody good, right? I think just treat everybody good. And, you know, I just think about that. And how many times, like just think, for example, let's say there's a missionary who's trying to go to the field. And there could be like 200 people in the church saying, man, we ought to support that missionary. There could be like one Diotrephes and he could just stop that. Because he could just say, oh, I don't know about that. And everything, we really need that $75 a month, you know, or whatever it is. And just that missionary could miss out on something that is needed for the work of the Lord, right? Just because of one Diotrephes. And one way you can spot a Diotrephes is the words they're saying. Like, they tend to use what I would say are sharp words, right? Where they're trying to cut you. Thinking of Donald Trump, he'd do that sometimes, right? He'd just say, well, you're just a loser, you know. The Screen Actors Guild canceled him or whatever, and he wrote him a letter and he says, to your cancellation, who cares? You know, you've never done anything for me anyways, that's what he said. And he wrote him a big long letter about how he's been in all these movies like Home Alone 2 and all this stuff. Oh yeah, you had a good part in Home Alone 2. Like 2 seconds, you know. You're such a good actor. The #1 show ever, The Apprentice, you know. And so he just really ragged on, you know, and I'm just like, that's what a Diotrephes does. He starts telling you, hey, you know, you're no good, you're stupid, and you're ugly, and everybody's wrong except me. And so be careful, because you'll hear that because somebody didn't agree with them. You know, I can always tell if someone's getting on to me how many times they say you to me. I know there's a problem. You do this, and you do that, and you do this. And I love how Brother Fred, when he went to the church, and, you know, Brother Bruce, grandpa's an interim pastor, and he goes to churches in trouble. And he went to a church in New Mexico, and they had been having so much trouble with different things. And in fact, the church was suing the pastor. The pastor was still living in the parsonage. He had legally had it set up where he could live in it after he left. So he was living there after he quit, and they were suing him, and it was just a mess. And they had other problems. The pastor's wife bought a baby grand piano on the credit card. All kinds of stuff going on. Well, after being there a while, first he said, let's drop the lawsuit on the pastor. Just no sense in suing him. The Lord will take care of it. And sure enough, the Lord did. And after a few months, the guy ended up believing him. So he just moved out. There you go. And he said, so, because with us suing him, we're just hurting ourselves. We're getting it. And as he went going, he started to notice maybe it wasn't just the pastor that was the problem. Maybe there was somebody else in the problem. And he said one day one of the guys wanted to meet with him, and he said they sit down to meet in the office. He said the guy sat down and he told me every bad thing about the last pastor. Just a big list. When he got done saying that, he said, and you know what? You're just like him. And he said he was sitting there and he said, you know, I've been saved a long time. He said I can stop my fist, you know, from moving and stuff. He said he's sitting there and he said, and he gave him a letter. That guy gave him a letter and then just stormed out of the office. And Brother Fred said he took that letter and he read it. It said all kinds of bad stuff in it. And he said, you know what he wanted to do? He wanted to show everybody that letter and just, you know, let everybody know. And he said, so as soon as I thought that, I just ripped that thing up and threw it in the trash. And so that's going to be the end of that, right? And he just let it go, the trash, right? And I'll tell you, that's sometimes in life, that's just what you got to do. Or else you'll start being like that Diotrephes that's walking around saying, you should do this for me and do this for me. And we got to realize this, nobody really owes us anything, right? And, if someone does give us some love and respect, we ought to be thankful for it that we have. And the solution of disunity and division and all this stuff is really humility. It always goes back to humility. It's humble yourselves, And we're gonna disagree, right? I mean, in a wedding, I always say this at weddings. I'm like, y'all are gonna disagree. He's gonna come home one day, and you're gonna be on different pages, and he's gonna expect this, and you're gonna expect that, but you need to step back and humble yourself and realize that look, you're both just people, and there could be some figuring out of this thing, and just be a little bit patient. And like never before, I think there's a need for the people of God to say, hey, let's work together. I know a lot of good preachers all over the state of Arkansas. Brother S. Murky was here for our missions conference, and there he is in Rogers, and he's reaching Spanish people in Rogers. And you just think about Baptists in general, we're doing a really bad job reaching Spanish people. I mean, we just don't have a good ministry for that as far as the Baptists go. You'll see Pentecostals reach a lot of Spanish. You'll see other denominations reaching, but we don't do that great job. And you take someone like Brother S. Murky, of course, he knows Spanish. He's from the Dominican Republic, but he couldn't have had that church had not another church had helped him get it going, helped him get started, kind of give him a push and help him get a church. And I mean, could there be a need for a Spanish church in Hope? Obviously, there could be, right? I mean, you could have a 200 or 300 people church of Spanish people here. It'd be good if we did have one that was Baptist, right? I honestly I barely know any Baptist Spanish churches around. And if I do, they're pretty small, or they don't last long because they don't have somebody to kind of be there for them. And so how are we going to reach all those people? Well, you say we've got all these people coming across the border, and they are going to because of this administration, right? Plus, we're going to have Muslims come across the border. We're going to have a lot of stuff come across the border. I'd love to gripe about it, but it's too late now because it's already happening. But maybe there's a way, if the churches work together, we could reach those people. Right? You can go reach some Muslim people and they can get saved. We've been visiting and running to Muslim people here at Hope. And usually they'll talk to you and be pretty nice. They weren't, none of them, threatened me or anything like that, But they did tell me they were Muslim. And unity is a good, pleasant thing, and I think it's more effective. I'll end on this. Have you ever, was doing a job? Now, if you're a man, you've worked on a car before, right? And you whether you want it to or not, you have to work on a car. And if you have a helper and you're working on a car together, things can get a little bit tight working on a car. There could be, I know that's just, I did that, a lot of working on cars with my dad and brother. And I'll tell you this, my dad's like me, he's a little impatient. And so if we're working on a car together, we get less done, it's not as good, it takes longer. But my brother is very patient. My brother is he puts on gloves before he starts, like a surgeon, He puts on gloves before he was changing the brakes, He puts on that. He gets all the tools laid out, perfectly. And, just takes his time. And I'm sitting there going, just grab a tool and try it. Just get a vice grip out of it, right? But he's getting all the tools perfectly. And if you're working with him, it's real pleasant. It's real pleasant. When you get done, you actually feel like maybe it's going to work. Maybe the brakes will work when I'm done. Because he just did everything, got all the little stuff. And I'll tell you, sometimes we need to understand that if we work together in unity, it'll make our life more pleasant, but it'll also look better to everybody else. It'll look at them and say, hey, that's not how my family lives their life. I'd like to have a family that works together. I'd like to have a family that makes things work, and they look at the church and see it. So it's a good and pleasant thing. And I think sometimes we're in a world that is really, it's really upholding division. It wants everybody to be divided. And we don't have to be all divided. There's things we can work together on. You know, there's things that we can do. There's people that we could reach better if we weren't so worried about the division part, and we just get out there and work together as a group like a good, not like the Buffalo Bills, but like a good football team, right? Like, you know, I don't know what a good football team is anymore. I thought the Chiefs were supposed to be good, but apparently that didn't work out right. So, well, let's do this. Let's bow our heads, and I'm gonna have Brother John dismiss us in prayer.
Lord, thank you for letting us be in your house today. Lord, I pray that you just help us here at Victory Baptist Church, help us to dwell in unity. Lord, help our families to be united. Lord, help our church to be united. Help us have a united mission to go reach the lost here in Arkansas. Lord, I pray that we would not let the cares and the problems of this world deter us from that. And I pray that you would just keep us safe, Lord, as we go home and